Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. Today I've got something a little bit special for you. Well, at least a little bit special for me, and that is Gears of War Reloaded. Now this is a release that I'm quite optimistically excited about for a couple of reasons. To start things off, I would like to thank the Coalition for giving me a review code for this game. I'm very grateful for that and I really do appreciate it. Now, Gears of War Reloaded is a remaster slash re-release of Gears of War Ultimate Edition, which was a remaster and a remake of Gears of War 1 from 2006. Quite the mouthful. Now, I'm very excited with this report because Gears of War Ultimate Edition came out in 2016 on PC. And it wasn't particularly received well on the PC platform. It was one of the first games to really utilise DX12 and the Windows Store at the time. The original Ultimate Edition release on Windows 10 had a plethora of issues in regards to stability and performance, not to mention the problems of it being a UWP app, which is a whole other kettle of fish that we will not get into this video. So, if you own the original Gears of War Ultimate Edition digitally on PC or Xbox, they do give you this for free. If you haven't checked already, please check your Xbox messages. You will see a code there from Xbox if you've played this or owned this digitally, saying here is a, well, in my case, here is a sorry we messed up last time, have this for free. Now, joking aside, I do want to give credit where credit is due. We have had some companies recently, like Sega, where they have made remasters and re-releases of existing games that people already own and still expect you to pay a substantial fee. It is very nice that the Coalition has given us as a free copy for those who own the original, and it is also part of Game Pass. You can also buy it as well on Steam for about £40 or your regional equivalent. So this video is going to be structured as follows. We're going to do a deep dive into the options menu, show you what's changed from Ultimate Edition and also what's changed from the beta. Following that, I'm going to be showing you the performance differences between Ultimate Edition on PC and Gears of War Reloaded. Right, so we're going to quickly go through the options here, and there's a little bit to talk about. When we go into the game options, there have been quite a few new options added here. Some of these you would recognise from the beta. New colorblind presets, new camera shake presets, which is always good to see. A lot of people have complained about the camera shake in the original games, so it's nice that that is an option to remove it. Even if you don't suffer from any color blindness yourself, thankfully you have complete control over the colors on each of these options here, which is amazing to see. More of this please going forward. I now expect this to be a feature in every other Gears game. Though personally I not might utilise it, I have noticed a lot of people in the beta on Twitter have been using this. So this is an excellent win for the Coalition. Going into display settings, I actually have a few things I want to really mention here that are technically downgrades from Ultimate Edition. First things first, it's the screen resolution. So I'm actually limited to what I can select here. If I quickly switch over to Ultimate Edition and go to settings and video, I have a lot of options for video resolution from different aspect ratios, from 16:9 to 21:9. Now I want to preface this by saying that Ultimate Edition did not support 32:9 resolutions. I have a 32:9 monitor. However, I could select a 21:9 resolution and play normally with that. On Gears of War Reloaded, I cannot do that. I am locked to 16:9 resolutions. If you have a 21:9 monitor, 21:9 resolutions will appear. There's still no support for 32:9. I brought this up into my mega thread on Reddit regarding the beta issues. Now, I do want to say that this is an early build. It's very possible there could be a day one patch that rectifies this. But I have to say it, with what I see right now, I'm a little bit disappointed that I have less options available to me on the screen resolution aspect compared to the disappointing port of Ultimate Edition from 10 years ago. Now, that could change, and I'm hoping it does. Now, moving on, they have added 240 FPS as a frame rate limit. The problem is they've accidentally removed the unlimited option. It is a review material that unlimited frame rates is an option, and it has been mentioned in videos around the beta release. So this is definitely an oversight, definitely a bug. Probably will be fixed day one on a day one patch. If it's not, I will keep you all informed in the comment section regarding the 32:9 support and also the frame limit, but it's very disappointing to see that that's not the case. HDR support has also been added into the game, which is very nice to see. Also very nice to see as well is these advanced settings where you have idle energy savings and an inactive window energy savings. While I won't be taking advantage of these options, these are good to have, and I'm sure if you're playing on a handheld, these will definitely come in handy in regards to saving your battery life. Right, graphics settings. In terms of what's new here, they've added flash reduction for photosensitive players, and also we have DLSS, FSR, and FXAA, and the option for no anti-aliasing, which is always welcome here. So yeah, pretty much a modern selection, which is always good to see. Now, there is a problem. On game, display, and graphics, there is no FOV slider. FOV slider is an accessibility feature. It has to be in the game. We cannot ignore this. It is a standard PC feature for the past 20 years, plus, really. And it's also pretty much a standard feature on console now as well. I know the console doesn't have it. It should have it. PC should have it. For those unaware, some people can experience uneasiness or motion sickness from low FOVs or high FOVs, and it all depends on the person, the distance to the monitor size, the aspect ratio they're playing. All of those contribute to motion sickness while playing a game, including FOV. A lot of it can be mitigated with an FOV slider. For example, for me, if I play on a 16:9 monitor, 80 FOV on Gears of War can make me feel a little bit uneasy. I can struggle to play long periods of time. However, on my 32:9 aspect ratio, I can get away with 80 because the peripheral vision has been increased. Everybody's different. Everyone has their own different comfort levels. It has nothing to do with making multiplayer uneven. It is an accessibility feature. It needs to be added into the game. Right, I've made my point about that. Audio settings. Audio settings, quite a few nice features here for accessibility, since we're still on that topic. Nothing that I personally would use, but the push to talk is a great option. This was not present in the beta, so everyone was on an open mic. Thank you for listening, Coalition or Sumo Digital, whoever's really looking after this port. It's still great to have. Thank you very much. Now, controls. Yes, let's talk about the controls of the keyboard and mouse. A few things to pick about here. First, I'll give credit where it's due. The mouse sensitivity slider is massively improved to the original offering in Ultimate Edition and the Gears 1 port from 2007. If I quickly switch over to Ultimate Edition, go to controls, keyboard and mouse, you can see the slider is just not very sufficient. You have no idea what values these are. In-game as well, this low setting was still way too high. Now we have parity with Gears of War 4 and 5 on the PC from a slider that goes from 0 to 30, which is very, very handy. Now, if I was to give some feedback, I would prefer 1 to 100 or maybe some decimals in the 1 to 30 just for a bit of greater control, but parity is still good to see and I appreciate it being added in. However, TC, I still can't split cover and run or crouch and mark target. This is a problem. If you play on controller, you have an option for alternate controls. This basically means cover and roll can be on 2 separate buttons. However, there is no equivalent on mouse and keyboard. This means running, rolling, and going into cover is all on the spacebar or whichever button you assign that to. This isn't good for multiplayer. It is far less from ideal. Multiplayer is very focused around wall bouncing in close quarters. So that means you're switching between cover to cover, and so you definitely don't want to do a misinput and accidentally roll. When you roll, you get put in an animation, you're pretty much going to lose that battle. The fact that we have it all on one button, doesn't matter how good you are going to accidentally roll. It is a huge disadvantage for mouse players. Or mouse and keyboard players, I should mention. Same with crouch and mark target. These shouldn't be the same button. We should be able to split these apart. Ideally, it should be like Gears 5, where you have running, cover, and roll on 3 separate binds if you would like. This needs to be fixed ASAP. This has been a problem since the original 2007 port. It's nearly 20 years on. this is archaic, where I'm not on a controller. I do not have a button issue or a lack of buttons issue. I have a lot of buttons. I would like to use them. Also, going back to the mouse sensitivity slider, there's no split between hipfire and ADS sensitivity. Maybe I would like my mouse sensitivity to be on 5, but when I ADS, I would like it to be a little lower at about 2, because for me, ADSing, I like to be a bit more precise and have that lower sensitivity. We don't have that option. And it's very frustrating, because when you look at the controller settings, these controller settings are amazing, by the way. You know, once again, credit where credit is due. The only thing I think is missing is a dead zone slider. But look at this. They have look sensitivity, target sensitivity, and zoom sensitivity. Controllers have it split 3 ways. We have one slider. It's not ideal. Ideally, we would want the same as controller. But I think having a split for mouse sense and ADS sense is perfect. It's just missing. And it is a pretty big problem. Right. So, let's talk about some other things that have not been fixed from the beta on this review copy. Now, I need to say one more time, I'm recording this on a Sunday. There may be a day 1 patch on Tuesday that fixes these. However, I need to report what I'm seeing here. Hopefully it changes. Once again, it will be in the comment section. First of all, they mentioned they've made ultra-wide improvements. Unfortunately, the camera issues that I've mentioned in the Reddit thread of the beta, that is still present. The camera placement is still incorrect. Ultimate Edition got it correct. Reloaded has not. I'm not sure what's happened there. It needs to be fixed. And of course, they need to include 32:9 support as well, and allow me to select my resolution of 5120 by 1440. Also, there is no way to change the position of the HUD, unfortunately. This has been a feature in Gears 4 and 5. Essentially, you have like an offset option where you can switch the HUD to be maybe closer to here or over to here. Now, when you're on an ultra-wide on a 32:9, when you're looking at like a 40-inch monitor, it's very nice that you can bring those edges of the HUD element closer, so they're more in your actual direct vision, not in your peripheral vision. I think it's a really missed opportunity that this is included once again. Finally, there's another big issue that's sort of plaguing this version of the game that I have. On the Steam page, on the video trailer, it does mention split screen co-op. However, just to show, this is my mouse and keyboard setup, and I also have my PlayStation controller set up. If I click on campaign, there's no split screen option. And the split screen option does exist on the console versions, on the Xbox and the PS5. So either it's missing from the review copy, or it doesn't exist on the PC version. Hopefully it's the former. Hopefully it gets added in day 1, but I need to address it. Not the best feature to be missing right now. Actually, also, while I'm on the brief topic of the PlayStation 5 controller on PC, the controller works great. Unfortunately, the haptic triggers aren't functioning like they would be on the console version. Probably just needs a quick update. Just thought it'd be worth mentioning if you are going to do a playthrough with the PlayStation 5 controller. Now, before I show you the performance differences between Ultimate Edition and Reloaded, there is something I want to mention, and that is in regards to user-generated content, the editor, and the lack of a lobby browser for this game. First things first, if I was to click on Versus here right now and go on to private games, you will see that there is absolutely no search for a private lobby. It's all invite only. There is no original lobby browser like the Gears of War 1 on PC and the 2006 version on the Xbox 360. Unfortunately, all I can do is host, and don't get me wrong, these map cycle options that have been present since the first game are absolutely incredible to have. But if no one can find my game, then it's a bit disappointing. You know, E-Day is suspected to come out in 2026, so we have this game for about a year, because I can imagine it would be coming out around, you know, Q4 of 2026. You know, when it comes to that, this game's population is going to drop pretty heavy. For those who still want to play Reloaded, such as myself, during that time and maybe host some custom games, it's going to be a lot harder to do that. The matchmaker can only work for so long before it runs out of population to fuel it. This is an issue on Gears of War Ultimate Edition on PC, you know, due to the issues with the Windows Store and performance. You know, the population for that game died out extremely fast. It came to the point where the amount of playlists we had was put on rotation. You would have 2 playlists per week, where it would just kind of just rotate between these, because due to the amount of options we have for playlists, matchmaking, good luck finding any game. You know, for example, if I wanted to search Assassination, I would never find a game on Assassination ever on Ultimate Edition. You know, most time it would just be TDM. It just wasn't, it's just not good. And there will be a point where the population does get to that stage. The lobby browser will fix that tremendously. And on top of the lobby browser, we need to talk about the editor. This is supposed to be the definitive edition of Gears of War 1. This is like the celebration of Gears 1. We're almost 20 years from the original release. It's come to the point where, to celebrate this, we're releasing on PlayStation 5 as well, to get new players from that ecosystem with us. You know? On PC, the quote-unquote definitive edition doesn't have a feature that we had in the 2007 port. The editor is massively important for us. Being able to create custom content, it's just a huge step forward for keeping this game alive and giving it longevity. For those who aren't aware, in the original 2007 release for Gears of War on PC, we had extra chapters for Gears 5, we had extra multiplayer maps. Both of these were introduced into Ultimate Edition for consoles for the first time in 2015, and we had that editor. The editor was pretty much a map builder, and you could create your own custom single player missions with it. I made a whole thread on Reddit a couple of years back, sort of discussing this and showing the importance of why we need it as a community. You know, other games have had massive success with mod support lately in the past couple of years. Look at Black Ops 3. Black Ops 3 is pretty much 10 years old. That is still getting player counts of 7k plus per day on Steam alone, which is insane for a game that age. But because it came with its own editor tools and all dedicated support, the game grew and sustained a community where they are happy to play that custom content. Look at Halo. Look at Halo MCC's release on PC. They have given us mod tools, you know, custom editor support, and that community has flourished as well. There is no reason why Gears of War also can't have that. Other titles lately, like Witcher 3, Metro Exodus, Doom Eternal from id Software, they've given us mod tools. You know, we've kind of had this resurgence of players being in control of custom content again, and I think the Coalition is really missing the mark here by not letting the Gears community flourish that way. I'm sure those have been keeping their ear to the ground regarding the little bit of the underground scene currently with Gears of War on PC, and some of the custom builds people have been modifying, editing, and also just the Gears 1 retail scene as well for PC. How during the COVID era we would host games every week with our own custom map cycle. It's important. It's a massive miss. We need to have it for longevity, whether that comes with Steam Workshop support or not. Don't get me wrong, it would be nice, but having editor included is just, I can go on about this all day. I'm very passionate about this. It helps everybody out. No one loses with the inclusion of the editor. The Coalition can leave the game as it is. They'll never have to touch it again, and the community can support it going forward. It can be put in the community's hands. We can add new maps, brand new custom made, imagined by the players, ports from other games, maybe even restore cut maps. There's a lot that can be done here, and we're really missing something here. We're missing it. I did try and do the old way of opening the editor like we could on Gears of War 1 on the 2007 release. Unfortunately, I just get error messages. So the references are still there, but I can't access it. It's either been stripped out or there is something just full on preventing me from accessing it. It needs to be included. I think I have talked about it long enough as to why it is important. If you really want to read more into why I think we should need it, I'll put a link in the description of the Reddit post I posted about 3 years ago now. I go way more in detail. I talk about a lot of mods in the original Gears of 1, like Hive mod for a bomber, some maps that were made custom-wise, an FPS map mod that was made by someone where you could sort of play like Carmine first person. It's absolutely incredible. Please give it a read. Right, we went through the options and we went through my requests for the longevity of the community. Now let's talk about performance. Now this section isn't going to last as long because, spoiler alert, Reloaded generally does have way better performance than Ultimate Edition. I think it's fair to say that now. If you want to continue seeing the rest of the video for the performance section, then please stick around and I'll show you where the performance issues lied with the original Ultimate Edition and where Reloaded does not have those problems. Quickly, I also need to talk about some of the methodology with these quick benchmarks and these very fast videos showing the performance problems. I had to record at 2K. I do not have a 4K monitor. Also, I had to cap the games at 240 frames per second. As discussed earlier in the video, there is no frame rate unlimit option on Reloaded as of now in the review copy. So to make things even Stevens, it's all at 240 frames per second. Also, just to mention my rig, I am on an RTX 5090, a Ryzen 7 9800X3D, and 32GB of RAM at DDR5, 6000 MHz. So it is a very beefy rig and might not be exactly indicative of what real-world performance would be on a more realistic system. Now, I am more than certain that an outlet like Digital Foundry will cover those sort of things and be more in-depth on the benchmarks. So, you know, take my results with a pinch of salt and definitely look out for outlets such as that. I'm more than confident there will be videos regarding it. Digital Foundry has been very outspoken in the past regarding the performance issues on Ultimate Edition, and they have also did a time capsule episode on the original Gears of War 1 with era-appropriate hardware. So, with that being said, let's get to the nitty-gritty. So starting things off, here is the average frame rates, 1% percentiles and 0.2 percentiles that I encountered on my test runs. Just so you know which is which, Wargame is the original 2007 PC release of Gears of War 1. This benchmark, it was actually running on a modified build by Punish Wolf, which is an AI bot support build. Just to quickly give you the rundown, it adds some visual effects to make it close to the original console release, and also helps the frame rate be uncapped from 60, because the retail version was capped at about 62 frames. You could not unlock it. And for the basis of this benchmark, it was just included as a little bit of a reference point for how the original one would run if you could uncap the frame rate, or well, cap it to 240 I should really mention, and how that stacks against the other two builds of the game. Now, GAL DE Win GDK is Reloaded and Wargame UE is Gears 1 Ultimate Edition. And as you can see, Ultimate Edition does struggle quite a bit in regards to performance. It's actually outstanding when you compare it to the other two. Now, going to the next graph here, I've disabled the original Gears 1 frame times because I think we're more interested in between how the frame times compare from Gears of War Ultimate Edition to Reloaded. And you can see there are quite a few times here that Gears of War Ultimate Edition does have higher frame times in general, which is just, I thought that would be very good information to have. Ultimate Edition just generally performs worse, which is crazy to think considering that, well, for one, the hardware that I'm running it at, and the fact it's a 10-year-old version of the game. So yes, there have been some massive improvements compared to the original. Now, there are a few little bits that the Reloaded does stutter a tiny bit with, but not as much as the Ultimate Edition version, which I will show you now. So right after that with Reloaded, you can kind of see here that the frame rate starts a little bit low. When you turn to that wall, it tends to increase to 165. But as soon as you look at DOM, it just drops below 100 frames per second. There are quite a few instances in this campaign where the frame rate can be quite sporadic in that regard. When you start getting to this scene, as you're leading towards the prison courtyard, the average frame rate does start to climb up quite a bit. And it starts to look a little bit more promising, especially in this combat section here. I've kind of had to abridge the footage a little bit just so it doesn't outstate its welcome. Here, have a little, enjoy some of them visuals here, my amazing frag throwing skills. But when it comes to this part here, it's when the door starts to be cut open, you see the frame rate get cut in half quite aggressively. I believe in Ultimate Edition there is a level streaming issue that when the newest parts of the levels start to be loaded in, the frame rate just really struggles. The game just can't handle it. And keep in mind, it's with a 5090 too. Like, you would think it would brute force better than this. When the door opens, that's when we get to below 100 frames per second. And as we start making our way out to the courtyard, you will see frame rates that will hit as low as 70. And when you keep in mind the sort of hardware I'm playing with here, you can imagine on more realistic hardware that most people have, there's a very high chance that you will get below 60 frames per second at 2K resolution. And when you consider the age of this build, it's not really ideal at all. Now, loading into Reloaded, you can see right away that the average frame rate starts to build very quickly, and even when you turn to Dom in this section, yes, the frame rate drops from 240 to about 190, but the drop isn't as aggressive as Ultimate Edition, and it does start to pick up very quickly. And, you know, as you continue through the combat section, you can see the average frame rate has sort of held to a 239 to very close to 240 frames per second, with the 1% lows and the 0.2% lows looking a lot better. And this section is to sort of just to highlight that when this part of the door starts getting cut open for the courtyard, the frame rate does not cut the exact same. It stays very strongly locked to that 240, unlike Ultimate Edition, where you get that very harsh 50% drop in the frame rate. So that to me proves the game handles level streaming a lot better compared to Ultimate Edition, and it seems that the major performance issues have been sorted, at least from what I could test in the first part of the game in the prison level. But for me, that is a very strong tell sign of things to come, because when other parts of the level stream in on the later levels of the campaign, you do get the same issue. The only thing that happens is when you walk out and the checkpoint triggers, you do see the frame rate drop a little bit, and it does stutter. I think that's to do with loading in these enemies outside, but it does pick up very quickly, and at least the frame rate stays strong. But it's just something to keep note of, that you will run into little bits here and there within the campaign, but overall the overall package has been improved, and I am very happy to report that. And another thing that I want to just quickly brush upon while I've got the chance, I unfortunately don't have footage of it, but the game's texture streaming does seem a bit on the slow side. Now, in the campaign, you only notice this if you skip cutscenes. But if you are playing multiplayer, even with the 20-second call, even with the map loading and the 20-second timer into the match, there are going to be times where you see some low-quality textures, and then suddenly they'll pop up to the high-res ones. So that just might be something that the Coalition needs to look at, just to see if they can hopefully try and make that a little bit quicker. Now, for this last part of the video, we're just going to be going over some quick comparison shots between all three versions of the game, just for my personal opinion on what looks better. And I gotta be really honest here, you know, the original Gears of War build, even with these slight additions, do look really nice still with the upped resolution, while Ultimate Edition here still looks pretty good as well, and I think I prefer the darker tone in Ultimate Edition compared to Reloaded here. It's very hard to say, because you could argue that the lighting in Reloaded is a bit more closer to the original game, at least in this first two acts of the campaign with the brighter lights, while Ultimate Edition really embraces those darker tones and the shadows. But I think for UE, it suits it more. And that's not to say Reloaded looks bad. On the contrary, I think this looks really good, especially with the illumination between these shadows. But I don't know, I think the darker tone does really help Ultimate Edition more and come out on top looking a bit nicer. It's very hard to say. I'm actually kind of curious what you lot would think about it in the comment section, about which you prefer looks a little bit better. Like in this scene here, like, it is very dark. The shadows is very black. And when you switch here though into Ultimate Edition, I think I prefer how the skybox looks. Not in Ultimate Edition, sorry, Reloaded. The Reloaded skybox looks a lot nicer in my opinion, and I do like that sort of shine to it compared to Ultimate Edition. You know, there's no real straight upgrade, in my opinion. Even if you look at Gears 1 to Gears Ultimate Edition, I still think Gears of War 1 looks really good. You know, all it needs is that resolution boost. Like, of course, yeah, some of the textures and models might look a little bit dated, but honestly, they still hold up pretty decently. And considering it came out in 2006, you know, there's a lot of games that look a lot worse from that era. But that's just sort of my opinion. In this scene right here as well, you can see just how much brighter, once again, Reloaded is compared to Ultimate Edition. And that is just basically the common theme in this scenario. In this next scene coming up, this is from some of the scenes that were given to us in the blog. And I gotta say, I really like the dusty grittiness that appeared in Gears of War 1. And I gotta say, some of these textures still hold up pretty well. I love how the shaders look. I just love the overall tone that is present in this version of the build. And when we switch to Ultimate Edition, it still looks good. A little bit more gothic, but a lot darker tones still, as we've spoken about before. But I still really like it, though I do miss sort of that grittiness that was in the first game. And you know, that sort of gothicness stays with Reloaded, but you do see the improved shadows and illuminations, and those improved reflections do look absolutely gorgeous. Now, they have re-rendered the cutscenes with Reloaded, with their new lighting and shadow reflection tech that they've included with this build, which is kind of cool to see. I didn't think they would actually revisit these re-renders. They appear to be a little bit more high quality, and in this scene in particular, it is a little bit more subtle for the lighting changes. But as you come up on the close-up of Dom here, you can see the little brighter tones and the shine on his skin and the clearer view on his armor and the background of that. It does look pretty clean. Now, comparing this to the original 2007 PC version, you know, that version used it all in-game cinematics and cutscenes. And I kind of prefer that in a way, mostly because when you switch to pre-rendered cutscenes, you know, you're kind of at the mercy of whatever resolution they rendered that at. You will have certain things like video compression included, but with in-game cutscenes themselves, it's the same resolution that you're playing at and the same frame rate. And sure, some of the animations might look a little bit more janky compared to some of the more professionally modern, up-to-date pre-rendered cutscenes. The seamless transition from gameplay to cutscene is a lot less jarring, and once again, having it stay the same resolution and frame rate, just, it looks a lot better. And you see this in the newer games as well, like with Gears 5. Gears 5 uses a lot of in-game cinematics, and it's just going to make the game hold up a lot more because it scales with your hardware. And, you know, as we move to Reloaded here in the chopper scene, it's still a good, well-directed scene, and, you know, the animations look stellar. There's not much really to hate here. It is objectively good, but I kind of miss this shaky war footage camera that is present in the original 2006/7 version of the game. There's just something raw about it that really suits the franchise and just really suits the aesthetics that is present in this early Gears of War versions. This footage in particular really, you know, sells the whole war footage found war footage sort of feel in this game. It really feels like I'm here in this scene, you know, dodging the bullets with Hoffman, with Min, with the other cogs. You know, there's something semi-immersive about it in a very strange way that I can't really explain, or at least I lack the vocabulary to explain sort of why I'm such a big fan of how this, you know, scene is drawn out here. Also, this version of the scene in Ultimate Edition and Reloaded was actually abridged. There's quite a bit of it that's been cut down, which you could argue might be better for pacing, but I don't know. I kind of like the raw cuts between Hoffman and Min to the other cogs, like Marcus fighting. And here in the Reloaded cutscene, once again, it does look good. You know, if this is your first time playing Gears, you know, you absolutely are not going to complain. They've done a really good job here. But yeah, there is something missing with the camera shake being a little more subtle. Here you can see the differences between the two renders actually, with the shadows in the background on the stairs. I will say though, between these two versions of the game, the characters look a little more pale. The pinkish hue's been removed and it's a little jarring, but nonetheless it still doesn't look the worst. And you know, that's sort of down to personal taste if you prefer the character look in Ultimate Edition.
110%, Phoenix.
I'm not doing this for you.
Thank you so much for watching, especially if you made it this far into the video. Once again, I think from what I've seen and played this weekend, that Reloaded is a tremendous upgrade from Ultimate Edition, despite some of the options missing and some of the things that still need to be fixed from the beta. Once again, last time I'm going to reiterate, could be fixed day one. You know, the performance increases alone, being free for those who already own the original, is good to have, and we must really give credit to the Coalition where it is due. Also, not to mention the improvements to the back end for the multiplayer, you know, 60Hz servers and the addition of crossplay. You know, my gripes with the lack of library browser aside, at least these next couple of months the game is going to be more populated than Ultimate Edition on PC ever was, and I'm going to enjoy every last moment of it. I really hope this video helps you decide if the game is worth picking up or not for yourself if you don't own Ultimate Edition originally. And I hope you have an absolutely lovely day. Take it easy. See you next time.